Oh man, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Emerald City Hockey Post Game Live. I uh I was trying to think of like a good way of starting this, kicking it off. Maybe there's something positive we could go with. Um I I can't really think of anything. I said this back in I believe the first period on Discord, just felt like a new low. And I think that's probably realistically kind of how I would start this. Is it feels like a new low for this team, this game, and just the way that it started. And oh man, I have no idea what happened with this one. It was absolutely brutal. Um, yeah, just no. There's so many things to talk about, but so much of it feels repetitive. But it's just this team. We've talked about it. They do not know how to come out and start a game on time. They did not do that again today, for sure. Just not playing defense at all. Very basic defensive mistakes, whether it's puck watching, it's clumping up around one guy, leaving two other guys wide open. I mean, there's just so many things about this that I, I'm just really struggling for words, right? Beyond like I don't know how to like break it down, really get into it because just so much of this was just it was just bad. Like, there's just not a lot of ways else to talk about it. But as bad as this game was, no, it's not bad. Queen Anne Beer Hall, where are we? There we are. Queen Anne Beer Hall is not bad. Queen Anne Beer Hall is a good place to go. And the benefit of this game starting at noon today, it's over. We're already started 2:43. You got a lot of time. You can go enjoy a nice evening at Queen Anne Beer Hall. Maybe watch some NFL playoffs. Something that's going to be better than what we just watched. I got to imagine just about any sporting event you go and watch this evening at Queen Anne Beer Hall is going to be better than this Kraken game. Ooh, it's bad. It was really, really something. Um, all right. You know what? We'll get into it, I'm sure, as I go through the comments section. RJ's getting on a plane right now to fly back up to Seattle, so he's not going to join me today. That's where he is at. But yeah, we'll just kick things off. Zoe, this game made me embarrassed to be a Kraken fan. I mean, this is a tough one, right? I think this was one of the games on NHL Network. This is not a good game to go and play in front of an original six fan base, a Detroit team that has also had its struggles this year, made the coaching change. Forsland mentioned a couple times during the broadcast. Seven wins in a row now under Todd McClellan. They're 7-1 overall under him, but they've won now their last seven. This is not the kind of game that you want to have if you're the Seattle Kraken. You built some positive momentum, good storyline yesterday in Buffalo with the comeback. Go out today and you kind of have that performance right from the beginning. I don't know anybody in the national media scene that probably would have watched more than when was the fourth goal scored? 7:53. I don't know that anybody was really paying attention to this game after that. And it's just tough. It's tough. These are the games that you'd like them to step up in and have a better performance, and they just didn't at all. That's the harsh reality of it is just that they did not play well in this one. Terrible Lotus. That was a game that happened. Maddie's 50th goal. How about that? Does give us a positive storyline. That is something, and that is nice. And happy for him, proud of him. Happy to see him get a goal, and it was a pretty looking goal too. It was a great pass out to him from Jaden Schwartz. Great finish from Maddie. I know Detroit maybe wasn't trying their hardest there, but it was still just another example of Maddie Beniers going in the slot, picking up a goal. Looked a lot like those Michigan highlights that they played of Maddie Beniers earlier on in the broadcast. And I thought that, it's good to see that for him and that he's able to hit that milestone. Really important there for Maddie Beniers. Evan with the super chat here, which was not expecting one. So big props to Evan for this. Can't believe I forced myself to watch that first period. Tired of having hope for the season. We need to free some cap space and let the kids play. Is that a new haircut? Yes, it is a new haircut. This happened after the game started, by the way. After Detroit started scoring, I was trying anything I could. I said, okay, let's get rid of the hair. Maybe that's the problem with the Kraken this season. Does not appear to be the problem. So we can rule out me having a longer hair as the reason for the Kraken to be cursed so far this season. Yes, obviously they're going to need to figure out some way of changing this roster. This roster in its current construction is not good enough. Like I said, they get They get the message from ownership traveling out yesterday. I already saw a comment about that we'll talk about. They get the message from the coaching staff that's saying all of the right things. That's, they're getting the right message from their own media people, right? Every intermission report, every pre and post game, whether it's Allison Lucan or Festerling, right? They're saying the right things. Everybody, Edzo in the box, right? Like in the booth. Oh my gosh, is he saying a lot about what this team needs to do? They're getting the message. It's just that they, for whatever reason, have some sort of block as far as being able to execute on the message out there in a game. And that's something that tells me it's a player problem. We've talked about this before. I as for having hope for this season, yeah, it's not going to be there, Evan. I'm with you on that. Let the kids play. That is a way or a form of hope that you can have. I'm just really trying and struggling to think of what you can do, where you can go from here. Let's say ownership does want to do something. What can you do? And this will probably be something that we'll talk about on the podcast when RJ's here tomorrow. But there's not a lot because you're stuck mid-season, and with so much of your core being on contracts that are pretty immovable, I don't know how much the Kraken can really do. Obviously, you can sell off guys that are going to have value that are either unrestricted free agents or not part of your longer term future plans. Yanni Gord, Brandon Tanev, we've talked about them plenty. I don't know that you can move anybody else, right? Berkey's contract's probably not. You probably can't move him. Probably can't move Chandler Stevenson, right? These are contracts that you'd have to attach a very high draft pick to, which you don't want to do because guess what? Your draft picks are going to be high this year. You don't want to move your first round pick when that first round pick's going to be in the top 10 just to get rid of one of these contracts, right? So I don't know that you could make something like that happen. I'm wondering if you could maybe find a team really desperate for goaltending that you can move Philip Grubauer to, because that's what I was thinking watching this game was if I'm Philip Grubauer, I walk in and I ask for a trade and I just say, I don't care how you like, I know it's going to be tough, bud, but like this team never plays in front of me. The vibes are terrible. I'm sure they are. And just get out of there. But I don't know that you could find an organization. You'd obviously retain half of it. You might need a third party to retain, in which case you're going to have to pay them to retain some money on that deal. You might have to attach a pick to make a trade like that happen. I don't know that there's a team desperate enough for goaltending that realistically you could find some sort of deal to get Grubauer off the books. So a lot of them, bottom line is you got to wait until the offseason and then you got to pick and choose what buyouts you're going to do. And I'm not envious of whoever is going to need to make that decision. Light with a super chat here. Appreciate it, Light. Only thing that makes me look forward to future Kraken seasons is, since Xmas, Maddie or Shane haven't gotten a point in only one game, 8 points in 8 games. They are both playing fantastic. Shane picks up an assist yesterday. Maddie Beniers gets that goal today. They are the future of the team. They have stepped it up in this, second quarter of the season, this early bit since the halfway point. I'm with you, Light. They have definitely stepped it up. And it's not because that they are being played more, right? And we talked about this yesterday. It held true through today. I mean, Shane Wright, 1450 of ice time. Maddie Beniers, 1710. They are not getting more ice time. It's not like they have made that true transition over to let the kids play. Let's let these guys go out there and develop. They're just playing better and they're just finding more success. In the case of Maddie Beniers, I think a lot of it is just bad luck reverting and getting better for him. But Shane Wright has certainly played phenomenal since the scratch. We've talked about it many times, but that has definitely been the case with him. And then JTB Hockey here with the super chat. Appreciate it a lot. I really do. Tough game. So what is the actual deal with Sprong? I know he's back in CV, but the Kraken could use his shot attempts. Maybe he gets another chance. There's a lot going on with Daniel Sprong. I don't know if everybody saw, obviously he had a fantastic game yesterday in Coachella Valley. He had 2 goals and an assist. I don't know if people saw the post game and the comments that he had during that. And I do think that, like, if you just read maybe some of the clips of the comments, maybe taken slightly out of context, but I think that kind of gives a little bit away with Daniel Sprong in terms of attitude and that not always being a good fit at the NHL level. And we haven't talked about it a lot. We've talked about his other deficiencies, the lack of defense, the kind of lack of play away from the puck, and how that has realistically greatly impacted his NHL career and his opportunities in the NHL. One of the other things that'll do that for you, though, is if you are going to be like a fourth line guy, you can't really afford to have ego or attitude kind of go along with that. And I think we saw some elements of that yesterday. I think there has been probably some elements of that at all of his stops throughout his NHL career. He is a guy with a lot of personality. That's why a lot of people really like him, right? You fall in love with the personality. There's not a lot of guys in hockey that have personality, but if you are going to be one of those kind of like no filter, say what you're thinking kind of guys, it helps if you play a 200-foot game in a lot of coaches' minds. I will say that, and I just think that that's part of this with Daniel Sprong is not only is his play away from the puck just kind of keeps him from being an everyday NHL player. Again, not just for the Kraken, but for all the teams around this league. That's why he kind of has had to play his way onto rosters off tryout contracts, why he has been traded for nothing, why he has, been waived, all of that stuff. But I think if you throw on top of that play away from the puck, if you throw on maybe an attitude that doesn't necessarily lend itself great to a situation like the Kraken are in right now, you're going to find yourself in the AHL. I don't know really where his career is going to go from here, to be perfectly honest. But I don't know that we'll see a lot of him with the Kraken this year either. From Gunner here, super chat, really appreciate this one. I'm going to change the word to rough game, but less than a week before coming to Seattle for 5 games at CPA. So stoked. That is going to be awesome, Gunner. Can't wait to have you here. Hope you reach out and we're maybe able to meet up or something for those games at CPA. And hopefully the Kraken are able to play a little bit better than they played in Detroit. They have been better at home as far as an effort and all of that kind of stuff. So hopefully you see a game more closely resembling yesterday than what we got from Detroit today. That is awesome. Hope you have a wonderful trip out here. Sean, it is embarrassing. What is the next move? Or is it that we all just wait until the deadline for a sell-off? I think we are just waiting for a sell-off. Look, realistically, teams in this spot, there's one move that they can make. I talked earlier, right? You're kind of stuck with the contracts. You can't buy anybody out. I don't think you can really make a large trades that are going to fundamentally shake and change the core of this team. That usually only means that only leaves you with a coaching change. And I just don't think that this is an organization that would make that decision. I also don't think that it would be a good decision. I don't think that the coaching has been your problem if you are this group. And I don't think that the Kraken see things that way either. It's just that's generally the one thing that you have left. I mean, you can start scratching guys, but honestly, it's not like this is a 1 or 2 player problem, right? Like this is a fairly team-based issue. You have your defensemen not playing well, kind of up and down the lineup. You have your forward groups, 3 of your 4 forward lines, right? The Matty Beniers line being an exception, not playing well. You can't scratch them all. And so I don't know that there's really that much that can be done. You had Todd Leiweke fly out yesterday to Buffalo and talk to the team. And yes, they were able to get that win and the big comeback against Buffalo. But boy, after today, that sure looks like Buffalo was just being Buffalo as a team that cannot and refuses to hold on to leads. They just want to give games away. I don't know where else you can kind of go from here. Just because of the situation. And so I don't know that we are going to see anything. I know that a lot of people want to see things, and I think seeing things might be good, but I just realistically, I'm struggling to think of what avenues they have open to them, unless they are going to do something very drastic, like a coaching change, and just be like, look, it's not on Dan, but something needs to happen. And I just really don't think they're going to do that. Christian, alas, the greatest comeback in history was not meant to be. That is true. Did not happen. General Pancakes, I got a new jersey at least. What was it, General Pancakes? That's exciting. It's always a great day when somebody gets a new jersey. I hope you're enjoying it. Jenna, Red Wings were my team before the Kraken, and that brought me no joy whatsoever. Glad it's over. Glad it's over too, Jenna. It's a very long feeling game. Put it on Discord when we were at the 11-minute mark, 11 minutes left in the second period, that we were only 1 minute away from the halfway point. And it was, I think, 5-0 at that point. And it felt it felt like you had already watched a couple games. It really did. Elbel, how worried should we be about Joey playing back to backs after just missing time from an injury? I don't think you have to be too worried. I don't think Dan would really put him out there if he was still kind of playing through an injury. I don't think they would have put him out there. I don't think he'd be back playing at all if that was the case with Joey. So I don't think we should be too worried about things. But it is going to be tough if he's going to start for their next game too, right? That's a pretty big workload that NHL goalies aren't used to. I don't know that it necessarily makes him that much more susceptible to injury, but it's going to be rough on him. Zoe with the super chat, appreciate it, Zoe. Time to switch up the D pairs. Yeah, I do think that is another lever that the coaching staff can pull. I don't know that we're going to see drastic results from it. I don't know that it's going to change that much for this group, but it is one of the few things that you can do. Obviously, the forward lines have been thrown through the blender plenty this year. I am wondering if yes, D rotation is on the block. I don't know what you do with it. Like, do you go super heavy and you put like I mean, I'm trying to think of what I would do. I guess you could try to pair Dunn and Montour together, but like you're kind of throwing a lot of your eggs in that one basket, and they can only play so much of the game. Um, I will think about that, and we'll talk about it on the podcast because, like I said, I just don't know that there's a lot you can do. You can move Riker up the lineup, but Riker's already playing decent minutes. I mean, he played more than Adam Larson today. Obviously, that might be just because Lars had the 2-minute penalty, but he's already up there in terms of minutes. I don't really know where you would go from here as far as kind of mixing and matching and trying to figure out D pairs and how much it's really going to help. Right? Because like a lot of the issues today in the defensive zone for those early Red Wings goals, yeah, the defense was bad. And there were certainly times like on the first goal where it's like, you got to clear that guy out who's screening Grubauer, right? Like there's no excuse for somebody to be screening Grubauer. But then you look at the second goal, that's a forward, right? That's Chandler Stevenson letting a guy just kind of be uncovered there, right? He's in the vicinity, but he does nothing to stop Confer from getting a stick on the puck and redirecting it past him. You look at the Patrick Kane goal, and that's 3 forwards that all slide over, or at least 2 forwards who slide over to the one defenseman whose job it was to cover Kopp there once Kopp entered the zone and kind of pulled up. Like a lot of the defensive problems that this team are having right now are forward based. So I don't know that the D pairs change up too much, but I do think you have to do something. And so I do think that, yeah, we probably will see something defensively at some point. Savvy with the super chat. Appreciate all these super chats, everybody. I really do. I wonder the same thing about Grew asking to be traded after all this was happening. I think you're on to something. I mean, look, it is one of those situations where you can ask for it. Doesn't mean that the team is going to want to do it. Doesn't mean that there's anybody else out there that's going to want him to do it. But I have to imagine being pulled after only facing 4 shots, allowing 3 goals in which you had no ability to really stop. After the last game where you had a bunch of goals that you didn't really have the ability to stop and you also got pulled, that's got to be just brutal on you, right? Somebody who already has had to kind of deal with losing the starting job, who has had this other person come in and Joey Decord play well, had the big moment at the Winter Classic, right? All of these different things, and has gotten that contract, and the team really does seem to be behind him. Going through games like that Columbus game, going through a game like today, I just got to think at some point you would want to really truly reset, and that could mean a change of scenery, or you'd want a change of scenery to be able to do that. So again, though, it's not really up to him. Like the Kraken would need a dance partner if the Kraken are even willing to dance. So I don't know that we'll see anything, but I got to think that if I was him, I would be in that headspace. Paul, thanks for all the great insight as always. Dylan, you're very welcome. Paul, thoughts on moving better players and going full rebuild? McCann, Dunn, Bjorkstrand, blow it up. I mean, that is definitely a huge blow up there, Paul. I understand where you're coming from. Thanks for the super chat. I do think there's going to come a time where if you are having to truly go young, it would make sense to maybe move like an Oliver Bjorkstrand who's right around 30, and definitely has value and is able to clear some money off of your books. I could see that one. Vince Dunn would be very difficult to move, I think, if you're the Kraken. Obviously, a lot of teams would love to have Vince Dunn. Um, Vince Dunn would be a tough one because I think, you know, you need him, and even if you are kind of, if you are going to have a lot of young players in your lineup and playing significant minutes for you, you do want them to have veterans around them, guys that are capable of performing at it, some form of high level at the NHL level, because you want them to have that experience around them. You want them to have those guys that can help pick up for their rookie mistakes, or you know, be there to just show them the ropes in these kind of, in a lot of the new situations that they're going to have. I think the same thing with Jared McCann. I think obviously there'd be a ton of league interest in Jared McCann just because of the production that he's capable of putting out there, as well as the fact that he's on a very reasonable contract, right? I just think that those would be guys that you would wait and move until they're in the final years of their deal and you've already talked with them. And yes, they are like, we're not going to re-sign because this team's in a rebuild and we want to go compete somewhere. I think that's the time to move players like Jared McCann and Vince Dunn. Otherwise, I want them around so that the young players have good NHL players to play with. We're seeing what that's doing for San Jose right now, right? Bringing in an Alex Wenberg to take the pressure off Celebrini and Will Smith, bringing in a Tyler Toffoli that can slide onto the line with a Macklin Celebrini and provide a legit goal-scoring threat that defenses have to appreciate and kind of take notice. I think that is the proper way to kind of go about bringing young NHLers into the league. I think it's what's led to the most success for a lot of the guys that are now like the legit superstars in the NHL. A lot of them had those players around them to help them grow, take a little bit of the pressure off at first, and then really be able to help lift them up once they have their feet under them. And I think Jared McCann and Vince Dunn are kind of perfect for that. And so I would like to keep them around at least until, like I said, the end of their contracts. At that point, if they're not down to hang around for it, you can still get value for them then. That, and you've got plenty of prospects. Like you don't really need to go out there and accumulate like a ton of assets. You're not starting a rebuild from nothing, given how many second rounders this team has had and how and how good the first round picks look as well. Chuck with the super chat question about e-bugs. Can a team getting blown out give both goalies a rest and stick the e-bug in like a position player pitching in a blowout baseball game? I don't believe so. I believe the rule is that you need to have them. You cannot choose to have them. Now, has there been times in the NHL where like there was obviously a very significant injury, the other goalie's maybe not super healthy, you send him out there for a little bit and then you just go, look, he's not good either, and you kind of fudge it, like maybe he is good enough to finish the game but you don't really want him to, so you say he's more hurt than he is. I could not tell you, but potentially, right? But I believe you need to need them before they can come into the game. You cannot just choose to basically have an extra roster spot, have an extra goalie, and be like, look, I want to give my guys some rest. Let's bring in somebody else. That would just be, misuse of the system and what it's intended for. Thomas, don't know what is worse, having a terrible fever for 3 days in a row or staying awake for this game. Really sorry to hear that, Thomas. Appreciate the super chat while you're not feeling well. And yeah, that sounds absolutely brutal, dealing with that. And yeah, probably on par with staying awake for this game. I'm really sorry. And I know you could probably use the sleep with a fever for a couple days in a row like that, but I appreciate it. And then Edward with the super chat. Well, at least the second period isn't the Kraken's worst period anymore. Laughs uncomfortably. Yes, we have officially. I think we could officially say that this team starts games infinitely worse than the rest of the games go. Right? Like that is definitely the case here with this group. Oh boy, you always find a way to make me laugh, Edward. I appreciate that. I really do, and I appreciate the super chat. Let's see, going back over here. Brooke, I've seen a lot of people saying Sprong's comments on being in CV are a bad look, and honestly, I agree with him. He's a competitive athlete. He's not there to be everyone's best friend. I'm with you. Like, I get it. I do. I think there's still ways in which you can handle yourself. And like I said, if you are somebody who is a borderline player, the best way to handle yourself is to probably just go with it. And say that you want to be back in the NHL. It is fine to be like, look, I believe I should be in the NHL. I work really hard. I want to be in the NHL. But then follow that up with, so I'm going to come down here and work really hard so that I can get back to the NHL, right? So that somebody's going to want to trade for me, or somebody's going to want to do that. It you can say the first part, but you got to have that second part. And like I said, I just wonder if he's just kind of a guy who's hasn't necessarily burned bridges, but has the bridges maybe he's had are not built on extremely solid foundations. We'll go with that. Sean, Kako with another point and some grit. That's something. Happy he's a Kraken. Honestly, Kaapo Kakko has arguably been the best performer on the Seattle Kraken for the last couple games. Like, just watching him kind of game in, game out, he is still playing with a heck of amount of consistency on a group that nobody else really is super consistent. That line is easily the Kraken's best line. I'm very happy that it as a whole has stayed consistent. And it's not just because of Kaapo Kakko, but I do think that he plays a big role in that. And I'm sure he loves the fact that he's able to get the ice time that he is getting here in Seattle, and that he really wants to prove something with it. Kind of regardless of where the team's at in the standings, he's playing for something else, and that's to prove that he is not a bust, and that the Rangers made a mistake in not giving him those opportunities. And I think that that's why what we're seeing from him, and that's really cool. Let's see. Lindsay, well, that wasn't a very nice birthday present. It was not. Apologies, Lindsay. Imagine yesterday was your birthday. It would be nice if they could at least lose fun games. Made the right call, missing the first period to hang with my friend and celebrate. Yes, hope you have a happy birthday, Lindsay. And yeah, this was it was tough. Kylie, 6-2 seems to be our new score. Win or lose, 3 in a row. Field back-to-backs are never great. They are tough for everybody, that is for sure. And yes, 6-2 just seems to be the way this team is going. That is for sure. How crazy is it that for these last 2 days, right, you walk away with a net 0 in goal differential? It's wild. Absolutely wild. When the first game is 6-2 in either direction, that the next day you're going to be like, that's it. That is interesting. Viren, Maddie got a goal and a minute of PK time, and Chalet is back in the lineup for CV. I'll take it. Yes, I mean, like, they are starting to give that a little bit to Beniers, right? We were wondering about yesterday what the situation was there. He's able to get a minute today. Maybe we already are starting to see them play the kids, right? Like, maybe this is how it starts, and what we need to be paying attention to there. Rogue Wave Creative, all joking aside, this offseason will be interesting. So much they need to change. They have some good prospects, but definitely need some buyouts. I agree with that. Rogue Wave. Let's see, Sean, I know you guys aren't fans, not sure myself, but wasn't McClellan considered / interviewed for the Kraken job? Yes, he did interview for the Kraken job, and they decided to go in a different direction. But yes, I do remember when that happened. Let's see. Ran, I forgot about the game today. That's how checked out. I don't blame you for this one at all. Like, and it's fine to miss this one, trust me. By Ren, an improved draft position. That's true. I think let's see, where are we at now? This is where we're at. We're at checking the draft position for the Kraken. I don't know that Takeathon's updated, but yes, this could potentially help them move up into the top 4. It is rough. Appreciate all the kind words about the haircut and everything from everybody. Johnny, definitely chose the right team to adopt after losing my beloved Coyotes. Don't feel much different with the consistent disappointment. Oh, brutal. But it's true, right? And yeah, sorry that it's that you jumped on board this train. It is tough. We got a great community here. There's lots of good elements around the Kraken, but the game-to-game results are pretty tough right now. Terrible Lotus, I know we've been through this, but who could they actually change out, and with who? Like I said, I don't know. You could maybe really try to send a message and try to swap out like Chandler Stevenson for a game and put in like Ben Myers. You've already got Mitchell Stevens coming in for Yanni Gord. You could look at, they've already benched Berkey a couple times, right? they've gone through and kind of, bench these guys. I don't know what you're supposed to do when, again, you need like 9 guys to sit and feel the effects of their play. It's really tough. There's not a lot in the handbook for coaches that covers situations like this. Uh, let's see. On Onslaught, nobody's touching Groovy. Like I said, you'd have to find a team very much in need of goaltending, somebody who's very desperate, and then you need to make the rest of that deal look pretty attractive to make it happen. It's possible. It's possible, but like I said, I'm not holding my breath for it. Don't get me wrong. And Milo, as a huge Groovy fan at this point, like, he deserves so much better than what the Kraken have given him. And I think, look, we've talked about this for the last couple of years, right? He just doesn't get the goal support. He is just feels like even when he has strung together good performances, it's just never come at the same time as the rest of the team, and it just hasn't ever really been able to show up for him. And that's just tough. That's just tough is the bottom line. Let's see. Sean, I would not make Dunn available, but McCann, absolutely. Interesting. Let's see. Ricky, immediate first move is sending Grubauer down to CV. He's unplayable. They'll burn out Joey in 2 weeks. There are never consequences for the vets on this team. I don't know that sending Groovy down does anything for you, right? Like, I don't know that you're going to get better play. Like, again, what was if Joey had started today and everything went exactly the same? I don't think Joey makes any of those saves. I don't think he saves any of the goals that went in, right? And Joey did come into this game and he allowed just as many goals as Grubauer, right? Behind the same terrible defense. Like, look at the first goal Joey got. Like the defense, the team defense today was inexcusable. And I don't know that, sending Grubauer down is going to help you that much. And especially if you are going to want to try to trade him, that would be a really bad message to send the rest of the league. But I get it, right? He's not necessarily contributing either. Like, I get that. Let's see. Earhead, I wish they played Maddie, Shane, and Capo more. It's all about the youth. I think we're going to start to get there. Like I said, if they're getting more special teams time, then that's a signal that the larger ice time should come. And it's also possible in a game like today that Dan was just trying to shelter them a little bit, because you don't want, as things are getting more and more aggressive, physical, something like that, and guys are just kind of going through the motions, you might not want to send them out there for a ton of time in a game like that, where the vibe and the energy in the building is what it is. So I think that's it. Sean, Sprong is obviously an issue. He's been in every doghouse. It is what it is. He ain't it. Again, like, there is, I could not give you like examples. I'm not going to say for sure that it's 100% an attitude issue, but whenever there is somebody that is moved around the way that he is, obviously there's something there has to be something there, right? Kalen, this game reminded me of a game last year right after when he was traded. I wonder what the team was told by the CEO, and if it told them the season is over. I can't imagine Todd Lewicki being just the man he is, and I've only had limited interactions with him, but I have interacted with him. I could not imagine him going in there and telling them that the season's over and that they're, as an organization, they've just kind of given up. That's not who he is as a person, right? Like, he is a competitive person. He is somebody who has a fire in him, and he strikes me as the kind of guy that wants people around him that are going to have that fire and be competitive and go out there and do things the right way, but with the ultimate goal of winning in mind. So I don't know that he would have told them that. I am wondering, though, really what he told them as far as what sort of changes could be made if guys are going to be on the chopping block, if things, if they are looking at a massive, I was going to say a massive offseason, but again, I don't know that you would want to even start putting that into the players' minds when they still have 39 games to go. So, it's very, I'm very intrigued to know what Lewicki said to them. I have to imagine it was something about consequences. And yes, maybe the organization will start looking at scratching guys higher up in the lineup. Maybe they are going to look at making a trade sooner rather than later to send somebody significant out of this locker room, right? And maybe that means it's a Jared McCann type guy, right? Just to truly send that message. Because like I said, the problem, guys, you can't move. Nobody's going to want them. So, if only it was as easy as just being able to dump all the bad players off of your roster, right? It's just not. So maybe that means that yes, there's going to be more significant members of this team that are going to be moved, and that is the consequence for the players that are not, pulling weight. That's kind of the only thing I can think of that he would have gone in there to say. Because what else is he going to say? These results are unacceptable. They already know that. Like having him say it doesn't really change anything, right? They know that it's unacceptable that they were out of a playoff spot by the new year, right? So, or that the playoffs are basically hopeless by the new year. So, I the only thing I could think of that he would have said is something along the lines of that, because his hands are relatively tied. Like I said, the team's hands are relatively tied as far as what you can actually do to actually improve the situation. And it's just difficult. It's just tough. Like it's just tough. It's just tough. Um, Jeremy, I have no problems with what Sprong said, but he's bounced around basically yearly in his career. It's true. Elbel, I get Sprong's frustration, but I don't love the idea of putting that kind of attitude into the Firebirds locker room. And Jenna, I feel bad for the others, Coachella Valley Firebirds guys, and I sure wouldn't kick anyone's ass for a bad hit on Spronger. Like I said, it's a weird situation. I am in favor of athletes speaking their minds and saying stuff like that, but like I said, there are ways of softening it. And I also think that, yeah, you know, when you're this deep into your career, 10 years into your career, and this is where you're at, there also has to be some level of self-reflection and stuff there. Um, let's see. Super chat here from Kendall. I know we have the prospect chat but for some positivity, who are you most excited about right now? Well, for guys that are not on the Kraken roster right now, the easiest guys to be excited about are the guys that have been playing really well in Coachella Valley. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this, Kendall, and for the super chat. I've been really excited to see how Edward Chalet has performed this year and how much success he's found. Obviously, just had a ton of success with Czechia, captained that team to a bronze medal, got the bronze medal winning shootout goal and everything. So he had a fantastic World Juniors experience there, but he was also able to come out in Coachella Valley and start off the season strong. Start off the season strong, very different. And was able to have some early success there. And I just think that was huge for me to see after the rough season he had last year. I was one of the few people to defend him in his OHL journey last year, as far as, he was still showing flashes and good signs and good fundamentals. It was just, he was in a lot of really difficult situations, both just on and off the ice for him. And so him coming into Coachella Valley, being able to kind of be more under that positive umbrella that the organization has as a whole, and particularly what they have going on down there in CV. I think that was really great to see. And for him to have that immediate success with them has been big. And I really think that he is a very talented player. He's a player that would have been drafted a lot higher than 20 in most draft classes. Just had the unfortunate, thing to be stuck in that 2023 draft that was deeper than any draft we'll see in a while. And I'm really excited about him and what he could potentially add long term, because I think his potential is, to be a true top line or top six, certainly winger in the National Hockey League. I think Yanni Newman getting going with the Firebirds here as of late has been great to see. I've always been worried about his skating and how it'll, the transition in North America and everything will be for him. Started off the season a little slow from a production standpoint, but has just been on fire as of late. And look, his shot is going to play anywhere in the world, and he's moving better than he has before. And so I'm very excited about that, because if he can get his skating to, just even a below average NHL level, that guy's going to be extremely dangerous. He's going to be somebody to score a lot of goals in the National Hockey League, and his skating is kind of getting there. And so it's been really fun to watch him, big man, moving up and down the ice, and then still being able to score goals with a shot that, certainly AHL goalies are not going to be able to stop, but I don't know how NHL goalies are supposed to stop it either. And then Jagger Firkus, right? I know I'm going pretty CV heavy here, but Jagger Firkus has also impressed me this year. Had a lot of doubts about him in his first season in the AHL just because of his size. And look, there have been plenty of plays where I've watched the Firebirds and defenders are able just to completely push him out of position because they'll have like 65 pounds on him. but he's still finding ways of producing. He's still finding ways to get open in the offensive zone. He just has a great hockey sense and read for plays, and has that ability to go to where the puck is going, not where it has been. And he has been able to produce a lot more than what I thought he was going to in his first year playing, true professional men's hockey. And so that's been great to see as well. I think the future is very bright with those guys. And then, that's not even talking about Berkeley Catton, who looks too good for the WHL, Caden Price, who looks like a great defender, who's really coming along and having a nice full healthy season. He's able to just kind of go out there and play well. So yeah, there's still lots of positivity going on in all this. Let's see, Joey. I'm not for a coaching change. I think it's an effort issue, but not something where coaching has lost the locker room. I agree in the sense that, like, I don't think the coaching has lost the locker room. I think what we could start to say is, like, did the coaching ever have the locker room, right? In the sense that it feels like they've been talking a lot about a lot of these same issues all season long, and the players have just not ever been able to really grasp it and go out there and play with it. I think, again, that's still not a coaching issue in the sense, like, I wouldn't fire him, but it is a personnel problem. And General Pancakes, the jersey is the Hockey Fights Cancer Joey Decor jersey. That's incredible, General Pancakes. That is fantastic. Love that for you. Sick jersey to have. Let's see. Let's see here. Paul talking about, depends on what they could get in return. NBA stars get traded for assets all the time. NBA is a very different league just in how it can operate, the money available as far as them having kind of more of a soft cap luxury tax system, and everything makes it a lot easier for large contracted players to kind of go different places. It makes it easier for you to absorb a bad contract in a trade and just kind of sit on it, because if you're comfortable paying the luxury tax, you can bring on somebody who is paid a big starting salary and who is really should be a bench player for you, right? Like a Chandler Stevenson in the NBA, you could find a trade where you trade like a Jared McCann and Chandler Stevenson somewhere, and you clear all that money off your books, essentially get nothing back, because that team's getting a good asset in Jared McCann, and there may be a team financially able to support the luxury tax of taking on a high contract for a player who they're just going to stick on their bench, right? So there are differences between the two leagues that do make it easier for player movement to exist in the NBA than it is in the NHL, because there's very few teams in the NHL that could just absorb for the next 6 years Chandler Stevenson's contract, right? The way in the NBA you could. And so that I think also kind of plays into things there. Ricky, trading Dunn is a summer move if you do it. Jenna, trading Dunn would be a bad idea, but I'm not crazy about the Lars contract. Yeah, but I don't know that anybody's going to take Lars on that contract either. As for it being a summer move, like Ricky's saying, it's probably a summer move. Although I feel like if you are going to make a huge move like that, like we talked about with what was Lewicki talking to them about, now would be the time, right? You're trying to get them into gear. You're trying to salvage this season, not to make the playoffs, but just to look like you're trying. You're trying to salvage this to resell, to get people to want to re-up on season tickets that maybe just bought a package, right? You're wanting to sell this to King 5, right, who just got on board with you to show all of these games. And I'm sure the ratings that started off very strong are probably not as strong as they were a couple months ago, right? You're trying to do this to show advertisers, right, that people still want to come in and see these games live in your building. They want to watch these games on television. I think if you're the Kraken, it's not about saving a playoff spot per se anymore. It's about saving your reputation. And I think that's really what Todd Lewicki was doing there, is trying to put some fear in them, because you need this team to want to at least look competitive. Because if they're not going to look competitive, not only does that mean it's really bad for the team, but then it's bad for everybody, right? It's bad for your television numbers. It's bad for attendance. It's bad for everybody that's then connected to that, right? It's bad for us at ECH, because there's a lot of you that are very dedicated to us, right? And we appreciate all of you, but it is one of those things, right? When the team does better, our numbers are better, right? We are tied to the success of the organization, just like all of these other people are. And it's one of those that, you don't want that whole ecosystem to start collapsing if you're the Kraken, especially not when, again, you want to really establish this team before the NBA comes back. Chandler doesn't deserve to be 2C. This is from Michael. He's a 3C at best, and at times even seems to be a stretch. He's been a disaster all year long. I agree, and I think the long-term idea was that he was going to end up 3C. I think the reason that you bring him in, if you're Ron Francis, was you needed somebody to take faceoffs, and you wanted somebody who could take tough minutes and shelter Matty Beniers a little bit and really shelter Shane Wright while Shane Wright comes in and establishes himself as an NHL pro. The problem has been that Chandler Stevenson has been so bad, you're now having to shelter him with Shane Wright. And that is a big problem because as great as Shane has looked, and Shane does look very good, he's not ready yet for that responsibility, right? And he shouldn't have to be, but Chandler has been that bad. Let's see. There's a lot of chats. I appreciate all this. Francis seems as good as gone once offseason hits. Great drafts, but goodness, how many bad contracts can you give out before it's too much? For Michael, I do think he backed himself into a corner here. That the team performance is not getting him out of, right? Unnecessary zippers. I looked up Lindholm, and apparently he's on a somehow worse contract than Stevenson. Lol, which made me feel a bit better. I don't know how he's been playing, but yes, that was a rough contract. I've always been a big fan of Lars Lindholm, but everything in Boston seems to be a disaster as well. And yes, that contract was bigger than Stevenson, so it does probably look worse. Sam, at least Catton had a 7-point game the other day. Going to be crazy the kind of point production he and Crystal can have. Insane, right? Like, and I know, like I said, I barely mentioned Catton when I was talking about all the young players to be excited about, but like 7-point game, there's something to be excited about, right? Like there's definitely something to be excited about. Christian missing Everly, a lot of people agreeing with it. I would definitely throw my name into that hat. It has been brutal without Jordan Eberle. I hope he's able to heal up, come back, and again help make the team competitive down the stretch that last like month or two of the season, and give us something to have a little hope for next year. Let's see. Yeah, well, I kind of just answered Rogue Wave's question about the rationale around Stevenson. So I'm going to assume you heard that. Brooke, Grew is immune to criticism until the rest of the team starts producing. Can't win games if you can't score goals. Certainly. I mean, I'm basically there, right? I'll criticize when there is something to criticize. If he gets beat clean a bunch, I'm going to say something, but that is just not the case right now with him. Clayton, I feel like the D along with just kept keeping the puck was just better with Gruby. I don't know. It's just so tough. It's just so tough. Jenna, Elliot Friedman explained that it was to take the pressure off the young guys, and everyone parroted that as soon as he said it, and I've never heard anything else as far as bringing in Stevenson. And yeah, that's really all it could have been. Like, I don't know what else it would have been. It's not like you're bringing in somebody who is a massive point producer or a real shutdown defender. Like he wasn't that guy. So I don't know what else it could have been. You had Wenberg doing that, but obviously Wenberg wasn't going to stay. So you needed to find somebody else capable of doing that while you have these younger centermen come up through your organization. Let's see, Earhead, fair point about protecting the youth, but you want your thoroughbred to run. You've got to give him his lead, let him run. Like Paul Newman told the Hansons, okay, boys, let's see what you've got. You do want to do that, but the best way to do that is to give them positive matchups, right? If you're Shane Wright, and we saw this when Shane Wright's line was really doing the heavy lifting for the Kraken, they were just taking advantage of all those great matchups, right? And so you're letting him run, but you're letting him run against certain specific competition to give him the best chance to succeed and build confidence and grow his game and all of that kind of stuff. If you run your centerman out there for 20 minutes a night and he's having to go up against Nathan McKinnon one night, Sidney Crosby the next night, Connor McDavid the next night, he's just going to get caved in, right? Like they're not going to learn anything. So you want them to get out there and get experience and build confidence and everything, but you do have to manage it a little bit and put them in spots where that's going to be possible for them. Joel, probably a better question for the deep dive, but do you fire Francis now and let the next GM handle the trade deadline fire sale? Probably not, just because there's not too much to be done, right? There is the obvious moves of Tanev and Gord, just because they're UFAs. So anybody could kind of handle that. I don't know that you'd necessarily want a GM starting to kind of build the organization in their image doing that. Like it doesn't change anything. And like I said, there's just so few other options unless the organization is committed to truly blowing things up. And you're talking about a Jared McCann move, a Vince Dunn move. Yeah, then maybe, at that point, you are really committed to things being different. You can go ahead and fire Ron. You can let the next GM start to do that and start to make the roster what they want it to be. But I just think like there isn't going to be a massive fire sale this deadline, right? We've kind of mentioned that a couple times this post game. It's just not going to be that. I don't think. Like I just can't imagine it being that. I'm sure Lewicki can maybe threaten it, but I just don't see them going through with it. And I think we're going to see the trades that have made sense all along. I don't think we're going to see anything else beyond that. Let's see. Rogue Wave Creative Hockey is that one sport with a hard cap where if you make a couple mistakes, you can bury yourself for a while. Yes, it is. It is very tough. And I see Jeremy talk about the NFL as a hard cap. Rogue Wave saying yes, but it's huge. You got some more flexibility. You have a little bit more flexibility in the NFL, but a lot of the contracts, like percentage of cap wise, can start evening out, right? Look at teams like New Orleans. Like New Orleans is absolutely in cap hell. They're not a good team. They're not going to be able to be a good team for a little while because of the moves they made. They did a lot of buyouts to try to clear guys off the books for some short-term runs, and they are having to pay the piper now, and it's going to be brutal for them. So there are examples of teams in the NFL that can really get kind of screwed the same way NHL teams can as well. But yes, in the NFL, it's a little easier to maybe allocate towards certain position groups, right? You're going to pay if you got a quarterback, you're going to pay him a ton because it just means more. It's harder to do that in the NHL where, the quarterback is going to control like everything for your team. Who's doing that in the NHL for you, right? Even if you have like a Crosby or a McDavid, they're playing a third of the game, right? A couple minutes more than only a third of the game for you. So it's a lot harder to just load up on just like certain position groups or certain guys and then like let the rest of the team kind of just figure itself out. You do have to make sure that you're finding good secondary options for all of those spots. And that's where teams generally get themselves into trouble. It's not about finding their guy, right? You could draft to the top 5, find your guy, and then that's your guy. It's the depth around your guy. And if you start spending too much money on that depth and you're not getting the adequate returns from it, that's when you find yourself in the NHL into a bad situation, because you're going to be good enough because your guy is that good and your depth is okay, but you're never going to go on long postseason runs. You're never going to win a Stanley Cup like that. And those are all those teams that kind of get stuck in that like 7-8 seed purgatory where you're kind of a playoff team every year. So you're not drafting high, but you're also just not good enough to kind of go on a run. And it's hard to escape that because nobody wants those kind of like depth middle-class contracts if the guy is not producing. So you can't really, you sometimes just have to wait it out, like the Kraken might have to, because you just can't do it here. And Mason also bringing up a very good point here with, in the NFL, you're able to restructure contracts, and in the NHL, you're not really as able to. All right. Zoe Dunn is popular and plays well. I can't fathom that would be a move to increase reputation. Yeah, probably not. Not gonna lie. It would be. You're sending a really rough thing. Like I said, Vince Dunn is never not getting traded until it's the final year of his contract, and only then if the team is still struggling and he doesn't want to be there. That's the only way Vince Dunn's getting moved. So we'll see. I might go ahead though and wrap things up here. I'll do a quick last call for anybody, but I think doing this solo and after the game that we had today, like there's a lot of bigger questions that kind of need to be talked about here, right? And I think tomorrow on the podcast is going to be more so the place to talk about them. So if nobody's got anything, I think we'll go ahead and call this, and we can all go out and enjoy the rest of our weekend. Still a lot of not a lot of daylight left, but there's going to be an hour to an hour and a half of daylight left if you're up here in the Pacific Northwest. If you're anywhere else, you might have some more daylight, or maybe you've got the day coming if you're over in Europe. Let's see. Edward, sadly, the number of players on this roster I'm comfortable with the team moving on from has only increased. I know it has been tough. And Jeremy, again, thank you for always doing this when it's probably not fun to talk about this for an hour. Look, we find ways of making it fun. But yes, like we've done a lot of talking about things that are not the game that we watched, right? Like it would be tough if I had to just talk about the game alone for an hour. But thankfully, this community is fantastic and we're able to have a good time regardless of anything. And speaking of having a good time, you too can still go out and have a beautiful time, a great time at Queen Anne Beer Hall, either of their two fantastic locations up here in the greater Seattle area. Want to thank them for sponsoring the post game lives, for being with us for so long and all that good stuff. Very thankful to have them, just the same way I'm thankful to have everybody who gave super chats and everybody who shows up for all of these post-game lives, right? It's not just RJ and I showing up for all the post-game lives. It is also a lot of you. And so I want to appreciate that the dedication from all of you. And yeah, we'll have some big conversations tomorrow on the podcast that we'll get back at it the rest of this week as the Kraken continue on this road trip. And we'll see you all next time.